The wind was colder than I remembered when I stepped out of the taxi and onto the quiet road. It slid under my coat like a thin knife, making me shiver even though I had prepared myself for this moment 100 times in my head. But nothing prepared me for the sight of her. Mara. She stood at the gate of the small house at the edge of the town, the same house she ran to 7 years ago, the same place I once found comfort in before life twisted everything around us. The wooden fence behind her was a little worn, the paint peeling at the corners, but it looked gentle somehow. Lived in. Safe. Unlike the life I had been pushed into all those years. Her hair was shorter now, brushing the top of her shoulders. There were soft lines around her eyes, as if time had drawn them with careful hands. She looked older, not in a bad way, but in a way that told me she had survived things she never planned for. Her eyes, once bright and full of laughter, were steady and unreadable. Or maybe she was trying to make them that way for me. When she spoke my name, it sounded like a ghost slipping out of her mouth. Evan. Just one word. But it carried everything. Hurt, shock, something like fear, something like longing. Maybe even anger, I couldn't be sure. I wasn't even sure what I felt myself. I nodded, unable to open my mouth at first. It felt like my throat had closed up. The gravel under my shoes cracked loudly as I walked toward her, each step sending up tiny clouds of dust. It smelled like pine trees and old soil and something warm coming from her home. Maybe soup, maybe bread, something simple, something homely. The kind of smell that used to make me feel safe before the world taught me that safety doesn't last. We stood a few feet apart, just staring for a moment that stretched too long. I could see the confusion in her eyes, the questions she wanted to ask but was afraid to say. I felt the same. There were so many words between us, words unsaid, words half-said, words lost in the choices we made. 7 years, 7 long years, 7 years since my life shattered in one night, 7 years since she helped me gather the broken pieces, 7 years since she pushed me away again, leaving me with a silence that hurt worse than anything my ex-husband had done. Even now, I still didn't know which parts were my fault, or hers, or just life being cruel. She stepped aside, her hand barely brushing the gate as she opened it. "Come in," she said quietly. I walked past her and the air between us felt heavy, thick enough to touch. Her presence felt familiar and distant at the same time, like walking into a house you grew up in but no longer belonged to. The yard was small but clean. A few flower pots sat near the wall, dry from the cold but clearly cared for. A thin trail of smoke rose from the chimney. The house was simple, almost fragile-looking, but there was warmth in every window. Everywhere I looked, I saw traces of the life she had rebuilt. A life I was no longer part of. My chest tightened. "This place hasn't changed," I said softly. "Some things don't have to," she replied. Her voice trembled just a little. Not enough for most people to notice. But I noticed. I had always noticed everything about her, her moods, her tone, the way she tried to hide her feelings by pretending she was stronger than she really was. Inside, the air smelled of cinnamon and pine. I could hear the soft ticking of a clock from somewhere deeper in the house. The wooden floors creaked under our feet as we walked into the living room. She moved like someone carrying a fragile secret in her pocket. I stayed near the doorway, unsure if I should sit or ask, or even breathe too loudly. Being here felt strange, like stepping back into a memory that didn't belong to me anymore. "It's been a long time," she said, her back turned to me as she straightened a small blanket on the sofa. It didn't need straightening. She just needed her hands to be busy. "Yes," I answered. "A very long time." She nodded slowly, her shoulders rising and falling with a small, shaky breath. "I never thought you'd come back." "I didn't think I would either." Silence settled again. It made me think of the night everything in my life fell apart. The night my husband, the man I had trusted for years, kicked me and our son out of our home. The night he chose his parents over us, choosing their comfort, their approval, their pride, while I stood outside carrying a crying child and a heart that felt like it had been ripped open. And the place I ran to, the place I begged for shelter, was here. Mara had taken us in without questions, without judgment. She held me when I cried, fed my son when I couldn't stop shaking long enough to hold a spoon. She stayed awake with me through nights when fear sat on my chest like a weight. She told me I deserved better, that I wasn't broken, that I wasn't to blame. Somehow, in all that pain, we had built something together. Something soft, gentle, unexpected. But then that too had shattered. "I wrote to you," I said, breaking the silence. The words felt small, almost childish. "Years ago, after you asked me to leave." "I know," she whispered without turning around. "I waited for you to answer." "I know that too." My hands curled into fists at my sides. "Why didn't you?" She finally turned to look at me. Her face was calm, but her eyes were wet, shining with something she was trying not to show. "I couldn't," she said again quietly. The same cold answer from years ago. But this time her voice broke on the last word. I took a step closer, but she stepped one back. Not far, just enough to keep the distance that had grown between us over all these years. A part of me wanted to ask 100 questions. Another part of me wanted to yell, and another part, maybe the biggest, just wanted to sit down, breathe, and feel something other than confusion. But I stayed still. Mara's gaze drifted to the hallway door behind me. She looked at it the same way someone looks at something they are afraid to lose or afraid to reveal. Something flickered across her face, something guarded, something heavy. It was the same feeling I had 7 years ago, the moment I realized she was hiding something from me, something she couldn't or wouldn't explain, something that had torn us apart. Now, standing in her home again, I felt that same familiar ache in my chest. Something was still off, terribly off. And even before she said another word, a quiet part of me already knew. Mara wasn't just hiding the past. She was hiding something now. Something big enough to make her voice shake. Something big enough to keep her from looking me fully in the eyes. Something that would change everything. We sat on the porch because neither of us seemed ready to sit inside. The house felt full of memories I wasn't prepared to face yet. And the porch, open, quiet, touched by cold air, felt safer, even if the wind nipped at our skin. Mara placed 2 cups of tea on the small wooden table between us. The steam curled upward like a ghost, fading into the chilly air. She didn't look at me when she set them down. Her hands were steady, but her shoulders were tight, like she was holding her breath inside her body. "You look healthier," she said at last, still staring out toward the yard. Her voice was soft, careful, as if she was afraid one wrong sentence would break everything. "And you look different," I said. She finally glanced at me, but only for a second. "People change," she murmured. "Yeah," I said. "Some do." Her mouth twitched like she almost smiled or almost cried. I couldn't tell which. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It stretched between us like a rope pulled too tight, thin, tense, ready to snap. I could hear the faint sound of wind moving through the trees, the creak of the porch boards under our chairs, the distant bark of a dog somewhere in town, but the space between us was loud with things we weren't saying. I lifted the tea. My fingers were trembling slightly. I wasn't sure if it was from the cold or from being here after so long. "Is it always this quiet?" I asked, mostly to fill the air. "Most days," she said. "Sometimes too quiet." I watched her jaw tighten, the muscles pulling just a little. That was new. She used to be more open, more expressive, more honest. Or maybe I only believed she was. "So," she said slowly, "why did you come back?" I almost said something simple, something polite. "I was passing through." But I wasn't. We both knew that. I took a breath. I needed answers. Her eyes flicked toward me again. "From me?" "Yes," I said. "From you." She looked down at her hands, gently rubbing her thumb across her palm, as if trying to erase something invisible there. "I figured," she whispered. I waited. She didn't continue. So I pushed. "You never told me why you pushed me away." She shut her eyes just for a moment. "Evan, that was a long time ago, and it still hurts," I said. The words hung in the air like frost. She opened her eyes again and wrapped her arms around herself. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did. A long, shaking breath left her lips. I know. I leaned back, the old porch chair creaking under my weight. My chest felt tight, like I had swallowed something sharp. My mind drifted back to the past, the nights I hid in this very house, curled up on her couch, trying to understand how my husband could throw me and our son out like we were trash. I remembered Mara sitting beside me, her hand resting on mine, whispering that I deserved love, that I deserved safety. And I remembered the morning she asked me to leave her home, her voice flat, her eyes empty, giving no reason other than, I don't have a choice. I wrote to you, I said quietly, years ago. She nodded. You read the letters. Yes, but you didn't respond. Her fingers tightened around the edge of her sleeve. I couldn't. That's not an answer. She closed her mouth as if holding back words that were pounding on the inside of her lips, begging to get out. The wind picked up a little, brushing her hair across her cheek. She didn't move it away. She was somewhere far away in her mind, deep in a memory she didn't want to share. I thought you were angry at me, I continued. I thought I did something wrong. You didn't, she said instantly, firmly. You never did. Then what was it? Why push me away when I needed you most? Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. Because I had something to protect. Her words were quiet but heavy, like stones dropped into a calm lake. Ripples moved through me, unsettling everything inside. I tilted my head, trying to catch her eyes. Protect what? She didn't answer. She looked toward the house again, toward that same hallway door she had glanced at earlier. Her eyes softened, warmed, then turned guarded again. Something was hidden there, something big, something she was terrified of me discovering. The thought made my heart beat hard against my ribs. The silence returned, thicker this time. It felt like the porch was shrinking around us, pushing us closer together while at the same time pushing us emotionally apart. I wanted to reach out, to place my hand over hers the way she once did for me, but I didn't dare. Do you remember? She said suddenly, her voice barely more than a breath. When you first came here, 7 years ago? I nodded. How could I forget? You were shaking so hard I thought you might faint, she whispered. You kept saying you didn't know where to go. My ex-husband made sure of that, I said dryly. She shut her eyes again. I should have done more. You did more than anyone ever did for me, I said. More than I deserved. Her eyes flew open. Don't say that. You deserved so much more than what he gave you, more than what anyone gave you. And yet you still sent me away. It came out sharper than I meant. Her face fell, her breath catching. I'm sorry, she whispered. I really am. I didn't respond. I wasn't sure I could without breaking. The memories rolled in harder. The nights spent talking on this porch. The way her voice soothed my shaking hands. The way she made me believe I wasn't ruined by the betrayal I had suffered. She once looked at me like I mattered, like I wasn't just a burden someone kicked to the side, and then she turned cold. Colder than my ex-husband, colder than his parents, colder than my own shame. She had disappeared behind a wall I couldn't climb through. Sitting here now, her silence felt familiar, painfully familiar. She lifted her cup of tea, but didn't drink it. I knew if I told you everything, she said softly, you would stay. And that would have been bad? I asked, eyebrows raising. She hesitated, her lips trembled. For you? Yes. The wind whistled through the trees behind the house, making the branches sway and creak. What were you afraid of? I asked. Her lips parted, but she stopped herself. Her gaze drifted again toward the house, toward that same door. That door was becoming a character in this conversation. Mara, I said gently, what are you hiding? Her breathing changed, shallow, uneven. She placed her cup down with shaking fingers. She rubbed her hands together like they were cold, but I knew it wasn't the cold that made her tremble. It's not something I can just say, she whispered. Then show me." Her whole body froze. Her eyes widened just for a second before she masked the reaction. She looked away, her jaw tight. "You don't understand," she said. "If I show you, everything will change." Maybe it should. Her lips pressed together hard. "Everything changed already," she said. "You just don't know how much." The words hit me like a weight dropping straight into my chest. Something deep inside me, something quiet, something instinctive, told me I was standing on the edge of a truth that would break me open, a truth she had carried for years, a truth she never wanted to say out loud. And the strange thing was, I wasn't sure if I wanted the answer, but I had come here for it. Her voice broke when she finally spoke again. 7 years ago, I didn't just send you away." She looked at me with eyes full of a pain I didn't understand yet. "I was protecting someone you never knew existed." She looked terrified. I felt terrified. The wind stopped. The world seemed to hold its breath. And I realized whatever she was hiding, whatever she had been guarding for 7 long years, it was standing between us like a shadow, too dark to ignore. Something was off, terribly off. And the truth was getting closer, close enough to taste, close enough to hurt. When I finally stood to leave, my legs felt strangely heavy, like my body wasn't ready to move away from her, but my mind was screaming for air. Mara followed me to the gate slowly, each step sounding like it weighed on her. The wooden boards of the porch creaked beneath her feet, a soft reminder of every moment we had shared there years ago, moments that now felt like they belonged to a different lifetime. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the gate latch. I noticed the way her fingers shook, the way her breath came out uneven. She wasn't hiding it anymore. Not the fear, not the guilt, not the thing sitting tight in her chest. "I'm sorry, Evan," she said softly. Her voice sounded almost fragile. "For everything, for the silence, for the way I pushed you out of my life. I was trying to protect someone." Her words hit me hard, even though she had hinted at this someone earlier. Hearing it outright made something inside me twist. Protect who? What could be so important that she abandoned me when I had already lost so much? I turned to her, my voice cracking with confusion and frustration. "Protect who, Mara? Protect what?" She didn't answer. Instead, her eyes flicked past me toward the house. Something shifted in her expression, a soft panic, a hope, a sorrow. And then I heard it, the faint click of a door inside the house, followed by hesitant footsteps. Light ones, soft ones, a child's footsteps. I froze. Mara inhaled sharply. Seconds stretched long, like time itself was holding its breath. The door behind us creaked open with a long, slow sound. I turned my head, and a small figure stepped out onto the porch. A boy, maybe 6, maybe 7. He stood in the shadow at first, gripping the doorframe with tiny fingers. When he stepped forward, the light touched his face, and I felt the world tilt beneath me. Black hair, my eyes, her nose, a face that was a perfect blend of everything I had ever been and everything she had ever loved. My heartbeat went silent for a moment. Then it slammed back into me like a ton of bricks. My son. A boy I had never known existed. A boy who looked at me with guarded curiosity, fear, and something else. Something almost familiar, like he somehow knew, somehow felt the truth. I couldn't breathe. "Mara," my throat tightened around her name. What is this? Why didn't you tell me?" She swallowed hard. Her voice trembled so much she had to grip the fence for support. "Because back then, you had nothing. You were falling apart. Your husband destroyed you. Your in-laws blamed you for everything. You were fragile, Evan. So fragile. And I was scared." Her words spun around me, mixing with the cold air. Scared of what? Scared of me? Scared of him? She blinked fast, trying to keep tears from spilling. I couldn't let them take him too. The boy stepped closer to her, clutching her sleeve. She gently rested her hand on his shoulder. The sight felt like someone reaching into my chest and squeezing my heart with their bare hands. "What do you mean?" I whispered. My voice was barely there. "You don't know them like I do," she said. "Your ex, his parents. They would have dragged you through courts, accused you of things you didn't do, said you were unstable, said you couldn't raise a child, not after what they did to you. I couldn't risk that. I couldn't let them take him away. The only piece of you I could save." Her voice broke on the last word. Save. The world around me blurred for a moment. My breath came out in small, uneven gasps. I felt like I was sinking into the cold dirt beneath my feet. "You should have told me," I whispered. She nodded. "I know. You took 7 years from me." She shut her eyes and tears spilled down her cheeks. "I know," she repeated softly. And every day I felt that guilt. Every day I wondered if I made the right choice. "But you still hid him." My voice cracked painfully. "You still kept him from me." "I had to." Her voice was shaking now. "If you had known, you would have stayed. You would have fought for him. You would have tried to build a life here. And I was terrified that life would destroy you all over again. You were finally starting to breathe again when you left. I didn't want to pull you back into chaos." I felt the ground shift under me. My chest felt heavy, my hands numb. I stared at the boy, my son, who was watching me with wide, uncertain eyes. He didn't hide behind Mara. He didn't speak, but I could see the questions in him. Who is this man? Why is he crying? Why does he look like me? Rage flickered inside me, not violent, but deep, painful, slow burning. A betrayal shaped like silence. A betrayal shaped like protection. "You made the choice for the both of us," I said. "You didn't trust me." She shook her head quickly. "No, I trusted you more than anyone. I didn't trust the world around you. I didn't trust the people who tried to crush you." Her voice dropped. "And I didn't trust myself, not back then." The boy tugged her sleeve again, quieter this time. She crouched down and whispered something to him, words I couldn't hear, but he nodded slowly. His eyes returned to me, a little softer, a little more curious. Mara stood again, wiping her face with the back of her hand. She looked tired, empty, like carrying this secret had carved pieces out of her. "This is your son, Evan," she said gently, each word shaking. "Your child, but he's also the reason I had to let you go." The wind blew, softly across the yard, lifting leaves, cooling my burning skin. I couldn't look away from him, my son, my own blood. A child I should have held, should have named, should have raised. 7 years of first steps, 7 years of birthdays, 7 years of questions, 7 years of never knowing I existed. The weight of it all crushed me. When I finally managed to speak, my voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. "I missed everything." Her lips trembled. "So did I," she whispered. I took a small step toward the boy. He didn't move away. His eyes were large, searching, unsure. My heart cracked open. "Mara," I whispered. "Why let me find out like this?" Her expression shifted, not cruel, not cold, but painfully honest. "Because you needed to understand what it feels like," she said quietly, "to be pushed aside, to be left without answers, to lose someone you love and not know why. You lived with that pain because of what your husband did to you. You never saw how it felt from the other side." Her voice softened, but the truth in it cut deep. "I didn't hide him to hurt you," she said. "But when I saw you standing here today, I realized that maybe, just maybe, you needed to feel what I felt too." The words struck like a slow knife, silent, emotional, exact. Not revenge made of fire or anger, but a painful, quiet mirror reflecting everything I had once ignored, everything I had once been blind to. The boy stepped closer, staring straight into my eyes, and my world shifted again. Mara whispered one last sentence. barely audible but sharp enough to carve itself into my chest. Some pain teaches you, some truth frees you, but this one changes everything.